Great. All right, so welcome to OCG's 5th episode of Checking In with OCG. In this series, I'm going to be hosting OCG staff members to chat about the latest and greatest happenings going on within the world of sponsored project administration. So today we have Senior Grant Officer Janice Slinkus and Grant Officer Kelly Rostello here to give us some insight into what's going on in the world of grants. So for the first 20 minutes, I'll be asking Janice and Kelly some questions I've prepared. Then for the last 10 minutes, I'll open it up to questions from y'all, the audience. So if questions come up during the interview, hold on to them. We've carved out time just for you. So Janice, Kelly, let's dive in. Hi, guys.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So to start, could you briefly help us understand what makes you as grant officers different than contract officers? Just because we have some new folks here and OCG can be confusing sometimes.
Well, I'll take this one, Kelly, if you don't mind. And
All right.
it's something I heard around town, but I have heard that the grant officers are a little bit more cooler. But that's just something I heard, you know.
Hopefully we don't have any contract officers hanging out
I
in this
see
session.
Mel there, but we're remote, so I think we're okay. You know, grant officers and contract officers do a lot of the same thing, you know, but grant officers, we review all awards received from federal and non-federal sponsors that come in the form of a grant, okay? And grants are governed by the uniform guidance. And I'm sure you've all heard of uniform guidance. A grant can be the result of a proposal submitted to answer a funding opportunity announcement, an FOA. Multiple institutions may receive funding from one FOA. A grant can be in the form of a standard grant, a cooperative agreement, or an FDP sub-grant. Okay. Grant officers keep current on the award conditions of many different federal and non-federal agencies. Okay, so that's a little bit of the different part. Now, what do we do that's similar? We do a lot of the similar things. We review terms and conditions. We negotiate these terms and conditions when necessary, okay? Grant and contract officers have been delegated with contracting authority. Okay, we provide final signature authority to accept awards on behalf of the university. We help the PI and departments with the management of the award throughout the life of the award. And that could be things like answering questions, going for sponsor approvals, things like that. And I just want to say in this past year, the OCG grants team handled approximately $400 million in grants, okay? And that was about 2,300 award actions. Now, an award action can be new awards coming in, can be modifications to existing awards. So we've been busy, and we all like to be busy, right?
Yes. And I would say that the 400 million is both grants and contracts, both. So for our campus, just to clarify that. And the other thing I would mention is that for your newer folks, the uniform guidance is also known as 2 CFR 200, just to throw that out there. So
Yes, I love the multiple names for the same thing. Makes things so much easier, right?
That's research administration, you
know. So to kind of dive a little bit deeper, what's the latest with federal post-award administration? Are there any major UG changes? UG meaning uniform guidance, 2 CFR 200. that will affect how we do business? What else is going on out there?
Sure. Yeah. So there have been some recent changes to the uniform guidance. They're all pretty minor changes. Most of it is, reorganizing some sections, making it just a little bit easier to read and to navigate through. And then also just some clarifying language, like, for example, let me just share my screen here. All right. So here, it just kind of, one thing that you can see is, can everybody see my screen? Yeah. Okay. So it just, gives you clarification on like when it uses the language must versus should or may. So must indicates like a requirement that we have to follow, whereas should or may indicates a best practice or a recommended practice. So stuff like that. Nothing really that is going to necessarily change how we do business here in OCG. So the only real change that could affect our systems in any way is that the CFDA number or reference is now going to be called the assistance living or listing. And that might change in InfoEd. As of right now, it's still going to be called CFDA. And I'll show you where that is later on. So, but that could be changing in the InfoEd system. We haven't really reached out to InfoEd yet to see if that change can happen pretty easily. I'm sure that other institutions will want to have that changed as well, since it's going to be changing overall in the uniform guidance. And then as far as other things to be aware of from sponsors and stuff, the only thing out there as of recently is the Department of Interior is launching a new management system, grants management system. And it's called, I think, Grant Solutions. Yes, Grant Solutions. And that, let me show you here again. Let me share my screen again. So that is going to involve, all right, sorry, let me just, okay, so that will involve all these offices within the Department of Interior. So if any of your PIs have an award within one of these offices underneath the Department of Interior, then they are going to probably want to get trained up in the system. I would recommend going to this web page here. It's this web address at the top here. And that will give you kind of Qs and or FAQs and that kind of stuff. For example, it'll tell you here the kind of tasks that you can do within that system. So the PIs will have to view and submit progress reports within this system. So the PIs will be getting in there, as well as, us grant officers will probably have to get in there and submit different requests within this system for that sponsor. So that's really the only big change for federal sponsors. So that's kind of all I got for new things with the UG and with federal sponsors.
Wow, I bet you guys are just so excited for another electronic grant administration site.
Oh yeah. But many passwords and many things to remember and all the different nuances of the systems. It's
right, yeah.
It's what keeps you on your toes,
Yeah, always looking for something new, something interesting, just to make you unique enough to be special.
Yes. And I'll just mention, we are going through some training for that system. So I think I have a training on the 30th. So after the 30th, if you have any questions, you can reach out to your grant officer and they should be able to address those questions for you, or we'll look into it and get back to you.
Sounds good. All right, so then kind of moving more internally or working with PIs and sponsors, what kind of requests or issues are trending when it comes to post-award administrations? What have you been seeing out there in terms of things you guys are being asked to do that seems to be trending?
Yeah. I'll take this one. We're seeing a lot of requests for COVID-19 guidance, and how it relates to sponsored projects on our campus. We've got a great source for information out there on the CCO website, okay? It's www.colorado.edu/controller, okay? And there you will find information regarding institutional and agency responses to the COVID-19 crisis and guidance for everyone involved in sponsored projects. So when you hear COVID-19, check out that CCO website, and there's a bunch of information there. I think, what else are we seeing? We are right now, and it's not unusual, you know, but right now we're seeing a lot of no-cost extensions. And I think a lot of that is the result of the COVID-19 and having that opportunity and the ability and the need to extend the end date of the award. That's what I got for you, Nikki.
And so no cost extensions, I know that we've recently shifted over to an internal process with that, correct? Just
Yeah,
wanted to clarify with everyone.
Yeah, I actually was gonna show you where to do that here in a second with the next question.
Well, then let's just jump into it. So my next
Sure.
question, of course, they know, new internal forms or processes that maybe our campus stakeholders should probably be aware of. So Kelly, if you want to jump in with that.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So yeah, luckily we don't have a whole lot of new processes or forms for you, which is always nice. So I will share right now my screen and show you where you can go to submit a no-cost extension on our website. Okay. Oh, geez, this little bar up top gets in the way there. So this is our website. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. If you click on this forms tab at the top here, that will take you to all of our forms here in OCG. And right over to the right, there's a quick reference here to the no cost extension request. And so you click on that there. And it'll give you kind of some instructions here. And then there's all the different sponsors that you would click on, because there are different requirements for each sponsor on what they want for their request. And then you click on that, fill out the form, and the form will get sent over to our central email box, and then they will disperse it out to the appropriate grant or contract officer for that award. And the nice thing about this is the end date that you're requesting when you put it into this internal form will get sent over to CCO, and they will update the project end date in their finance system, which is our overall anticipated end date, or the end date, the official, not the official end date, but the anticipated end date. If that was already entered, then it was already extended to the anticipated end date. But if it didn't have an anticipated end date in our system, and I can show you that here in a second, then it will update that, so that when the no cost extension is in process, if the sponsor takes longer to approve the no cost extension than our current end date, if our end date passes, you're still going to be able to post expenses in the finance system, and the speed type will be open and active during that time. So you won't have any delay in posting your expenses for that project. So, and then as far as other processes, I was just going to show you all real quick kind of how we do things. So the way it works with awards, whether it's an initial award or a modification to an award, it gets logged into the InfoEd system. The way that happens is it gets sent to OCG at colorado.edu, and our loggers log it into the system. So if you have an award modification or an initial award, you can always send it there with your and you can CC your grant officer or your contract officer, and that way you can ensure it gets into the system. Or you can just send it to the officer and they'll forward it on to the loggers. Once it gets logged in the system, this is where you'll see down below here the award increment. It gets created, and then it gets logged either to the grants team or the contracts team. And sometimes that will switch if we review the award and realize it should be managed by one of the other teams, then we'll switch it to that team. And then you'll see things like this, like I needed on this one in particular, a response from either the DRA or the PI. And so I'll open that up. I'll put a little explanation as to what I need. And then once I get that, I'll close that. And then like this one, I also needed to reach out to the sponsor. So right now this one has a open pending issue with the sponsor because I needed them to update something in the agreement. And then I'll close that. And then this would be more of your standard one. If you didn't have negotiations or anything from the department that you needed, you would just see it get sent over to us and we would review the grant first. So us officers review it first. We make sure everything looks good as far as terms and conditions, and then we'll get it signed a lot of times. And if it needs signatures, and then we'll send it off to get processed. And then you'll see the grant or the processor will reassign it to themselves. And then once they're done with it being processed, they'll forward it on to CCO. And that's when CCO will put everything in the finance system and generate your speed type for the project, or they'll update the speed type if it's a modification with your new funding. And then once that is done, you will see project setup complete. So when you see that, that means it has gone through OCG and it has gone through CCO and it has been completed both in CCO and OCG.
Hey, Kelly, just to clarify, are you speaking to the diagram with the green boxes?
No, can you not see my?
Well, what we can see is the no cost extension page on the OCG website.
Okay.
But if you are referring to a different visual, we can't.
Yeah, let me just reshare again and see if this will work. Okay. How about now?
Yep, we're in info ed.
Okay. Yeah, so this is within AT award tracking. So again, if you want to see where we are in the process, this is what it's going to look like. So again, grant reviewed first, then sent on to processing here in OCG, then it's sent over to CCO to have them update it in the finance system, and then project setup complete is once it's been completed by CCO. So there's that one, and then I can just show you real quick. So this one was the one that I was talking about, where if we have to reach out to the PI or the DRA, you'll see something like PI department response needed. And then once we get what we need, we'll close it. Same with negotiation pending issues with the sponsor. So if you see that kind of stuff, it just means we're working on it. And if you want to reach out to us, we can give you a little more explanation, but you can see over here in the comments, we'll put in a little something to explain what we're looking for. So, and then, yeah, as far as any newer folks, the difference between, sorry, let me see if I can pull this up. I was going to show you where you can pull up AT versus PT. Let's see if I got that easily referenced. I don't. All right. Well, anyways, if you ever wanted to, get a more one-on-one session, I would recommend reaching out to the grant officer, scheduling a time with one of us. We can always get on Teams or on Zoom and do screen sharing and this kind of stuff and walk you through the system and where to find things. Because it's nice to be able to find the information on your own. And for example, like here, let me share this. Sorry. Jumping all over the place, but okay, here we go. So this, if you were to put in, a proposal number over here in the search bar, then it would pull up these two different things. So when you see the AWD, that's going to take you to the award tracking. So if you click on that, and it will pull up the award tracking, which is where I showed you where all the comments are. So that's where you go for details on where we are in the process of the award. And then the proposal tracking is what most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, which is where you can see all the proposal details, where you can see the budget entered, where all the attachment documents are at. So this would be your normal kind of area that most of you would probably go to, where you can see where the budget's entered. You can click on attachments and see all the award documents, all the proposal documents, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I just also shared a link to our InfoEd training, which is now an
Cool.
online course, and it really takes you step-by-step video tutorial and everything through everything. So if you are
Perfect.
on here being like, InfoEd what?
Yeah.
That would be a great course to go through. And even if you are familiar with InfoEd, it does take you through some things that you might not even know exists on there. So
For sure.
highly recommend and appreciate you kind of showing those screenshots to find status history.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, as far as any major process changes and stuff like that, nothing's really changed. So, you know, if you ever need help with anything, we're always here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Janice and Kelly, for at least sitting with me and tolerating my questions. So now is the time that we are going to open it up to you guys. And I know we already have some questions in the chat. So let me field those first. And then if
Sure.
anyone else has questions, you can either leave them in the chat for me or unmute yourself and go ahead and find a little spot in the silence to ask. So we're going to start with a question from Angelina. Who in OCG is going to be a responsible individual approving additional access to grant solutions?
So that we'll have to look into, because I don't know if there's going to be like a central person that manages allowing that kind of access, or if we're each just going to have to create our own accounts and get in there ourselves. I'll probably know more after I do the training on the 30th, and then I can talk to my manager and see what we think as far as if there should be a person that kind of sets up additional accounts and
Right.
handles that kind of stuff. So more to come on that one.
Because as we know, every different system has their own way of doing things.
Yes.
So I'm sure we will definitely communicate out what that will look like after Kelly goes to that initial training.
Yes.
So I have a question from Andy. Is there a way in which the DRAs, not PIs, can receive notifications when the no-cost extensions are officially approved by sponsors?
So, yeah, I mean, most of the time, you will get an email from CCO when the finance system has been updated. So they should be sending out an email, I believe, after that. Otherwise, you can just put a note in the, I believe there's a spot at the bottom of the NCE form to put a note, and you could just put a note in there that please notify me when the approval has come through. But again, your end date's going to already be extended in the finance system. So we would definitely let you know if it came back as denied, for sure. We would definitely reach out to the PI and the DRA and say, listen, the NCE got denied. We can either try to resubmit it, or we need to move all expenses off of the speed type after this date because the sponsor is not going to allow the extension to go through. Otherwise, the end date has already been extended in the finance system. You can post expenses, and then it's really just a formality at that point. Once we get the official approval, we'll update the end date in InfoEd, but it shouldn't delay your project as far as expenses go.
Good to know. Another question here. I'm curious about how many active grants do grant officers manage at one time?
Janice, you want to take that
Same.
one?
Like,
I
let's
am
just
also
say,
curious.
we'll just say millions and millions. It feels like that. But you know, I don't know what the number is, you know, at one time.
Kind of ups and downs. I mean,
Ups and
really,
downs.
yeah, just depends on the time of year, really. Yeah.
And we all manage individual departments. Okay, we're all assigned to different departments, and sometimes, you know, things are busier than at other times a year. But we always have those open awards that we're always managing to. You know, so I don't know if we have an actual number.
Yeah, and I believe this would be a good point to bring up to Roger's question about where you can find your grant officer. So there is the directory on the website. So if you go to our website, you'll see a tab up on the right labeled directory. Just click on there, and then you can go find your department and click on your department, and then it's going to give you your grant officer, your contract officer, your proposal analyst, any OCG contact that you need. So
Yeah, it looks like Roger linked that.
perfect.
So thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
For doing that. Oh, and it looks like Ron chipped in too, our assistant director of grants. He said there are almost 1,900 active, so meaning end date after today, grant records in InfoEd. Wow, that's a lot. Any other questions out there? We have a couple minutes at the end, so feel free to unmute yourself if you just want to ask yourself, or throw it in the chat. I'll give you guys a minute. I actually have one more question I'll throw at you guys while people are thinking. So before we close, if our campus stakeholders could be aware of one thing that happens like behind the scenes of your day-to-day work, what would that be?
Behind the scenes, I don't think the folks on campus know that the grants team is in constant communication with each other all day long. Okay, we use Slack to communicate and collaborate with each other, and within a Slack session, we talk to each other with questions. You know, weird stuff has come up. We can get on calls with each other at a moment's notice. Through Slack, we request of our processors a rush on an award. We post FYIs, notifications of additions to our reference database. It's almost like we're in the same room together without the annoyances that would actually occur if we were in the same room together. So it works out really nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good to know, because yeah, there are so many bizarre situations that come up that I know you guys are in constant communication about. So it's not just your grant officer sitting in a room all by herself, but it's this whole group with wide ranges of experience helping you guys on your various things that are happening with your grants. So we appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And we really appreciate working with our campus team members.
For sure. I think we got one more question. I don't know if we have time to address it.
Yeah, it is 10:30, but why don't you take the last question, and if anyone has to go, we wish you a nice Wednesday, and if you can stay, feel free to stay.
Yeah, so Andy's question is, how does the grants team and sub team work together to move along the processing when there are subs? So we do indicate when there's subs, and we do enter the budget with the subs, you know, portion pulled out. If it's incrementally funded, we'll usually reach out to the DRA and the PI to clarify how much of that increment they want to go to their subs. And then we do have our processors route it to the sub officer so that they get it even as it's going to CCO. Prior, it used to have to go through CCO before it would land on the sub officer's list. So now we're trying to speed that up by getting on their list sooner. So yeah, we definitely do try and work with them to get the process going as smoothly as possible. But a lot of times it has to go through CCO and project setup before the sub officer can actually issue something to the subs. At least that's my understanding. I'm not a sub award officer, so hopefully I didn't mess any of that up too much, but I'm pretty sure that's my understanding. Janice, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm right behind you, Kelly.
Perfect.
We say on our Slack channel, you know, with our departments, no reason to go shopping around. We're all going to give you the same answer.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Kelly and Janice, for sharing and taking time this morning to be with us. We appreciate your work and what you guys are doing behind the scenes. And to our DRAs and finance officers who joined us today, thank you. Again, I recorded this session, so later today I will have that up. I sent the email out this morning with a link to where all those recordings will be. So until next time, I will see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to see you guys.